if I have a friend and I'm a kid and I'm playing one-on-one basketball with him, you could say that each basketball bout is a finite game in that I could win it or lose it. But the friendship, at least in part, could be a sequence of those games. And the rule for a sequence is something more like, well, try being a good sport and fun to play with, which is, well, that's way different than win, right? It includes winning, because if we're going to play, I would like you to try to win. Because
part of being a good sport is playing full out.
Exactly. In a fair game. And the fair part of it is a nod to that higher order morality that's part of, say, an infinite game rather than a finite game. But all of that's embedded and embodied in all of our social communicative practices all the time. The psychopathic types and the narcissistic types, they just use that to manipulate. Right? They're not using it to play a finite game or to play an infinite game. And this is interesting too.
They use which bit?
Well, whatever information they derive from the social interaction, they just put to their own self-serving purposes, right? They're just using it to facilitate manipulation. And you might ask, and this is a perfectly good question, well, why not do that? This is why people like Andrew Tate are attractive, let's say, to the incel crowd. It's like, if I can manipulate you and I can get what I want, then why the hell shouldn't I do it?
That's just will to power 101. Yeah.
Precisely. Why shouldn't I take advantage of that? Why shouldn't I lie and cheat and steal if it means I get my way? Well, part of the answer to that is, well, that might work momentarily, but you're also playing an infinite game with yourself. And we know perfectly well that the typical outcome of the psychopathic pattern of interaction is negative for the psychopath himself. They're incapable of learning from experience, for example, so they repeat their errors. They don't modify their own behavior. And so if you're a psychopath and a narcissist and Machiavellian, you can optimize certain forms of short-term return, but it's a really bad medium to long-term game. So even if you don't include other people in the purview of your moral sentiment, if you're a psychopath, you dispense with your future self. That's why so many of them end up in prison.
Well, okay, so you probably know these stats stone cold, but right, so large numbers of psychopaths end up in prison, then also, 1 in 3 Fortune 1000 CEOs are sociopaths.
I doubt that. But
you doubt it?
Yeah, no, I don't believe that. I think that's overblown, and I think there's a lot of implicit leftist, anti-capitalist idiocy in those studies. That doesn't mean there aren't plenty of Machiavellian people, some of whom occupy positions of power. But the problem is, it's not to become, to become successful in any enterprise that iterates, you can't screw people over. Not very well, because they remember, and people have evolved modules for remembering cheaters. Like, we're very good at remembering cheaters. And so most people who are engaged in complex reciprocal social interactions can't be psychopathic because they get caught.